Well, welcome to the BNI Effect, the home of amazing conversations with Brisbane BNI members, sharing tips on how you can get the most out of BNI. I'm Tony Meredith, and ordinarily I'm a business coach, but today I'm your host and fellow BNI member, bringing you yet another amazing interview. This is episode number 56, and today's guest is Janeene Fitzgerald. G'day, Janeene. How are you?
Well, thank you, Tony. How are you?
I'm wonderful, thank you. Thank you for being here. Why don't we kick it off with you telling us a little bit about who you are and what the business is that you've got, Janeene?
Perfect. Thank you. Well, I thought I'd sort of start a little bit with the fact that I love animals. So just a little bit about me. Have a lot of very high energy and a bit of a thirst for learning and that passion for sort of partnering with leaders to build capability.
What's your
So
favourite
that
animal, Janeene? As a matter of interest, you love animals. What's your favourite?
so we have two dogs at the moment,
Mhm.
and a cat, but she passed away a couple of years ago. And yes, the two dogs, one is 15 and a half, going on 16,
Mhm.
border collie cross cattle, and the other one is a cavoodle cross Bichon Frise.
Beautiful, beautiful. Okay, great. Sorry, I interrupted you, but I was just curious as to being an animal lover, just which animals you've got.
Yeah, no, love the dogs. I've grown up with them all my life, actually. So yeah.
Fantastic.
So in terms of my business, so HRS Connect, we've been established for sort of roughly 8 years. And during that sort of 8 years, partnering with business for people, safety, leadership, culture development programs. We do the range of sort of strategic and operational HR. So predominantly being a sort of insourced, outsourced provider. And we sort of develop bespoke education sessions for employees and teams. So I suppose I liken that part of the sort of one of our bows, um, where you've got employees who have probably been overloaded with all of the compliance, and they probably have a handbook that's probably this thick, with 140 odd pages that they actually don't ever read. So we actually go in and work with the leaders to say, well, what are your biggest pain points? How do we actually help your employees know what those pain points are, and that everyone knows what page they should be on in terms of their expectations and how they should behave?
Okay, great. And what does HRS stand for?
Pretty much, I was looking for a name that would encapsulate human resources and safety. Because we do a little bit of both. So it's sort of connecting HR and safety, which is where we got the name from.
There you go. I love it. And so then prior to then doing this business, like were you in the HR space, Janeene? Is that right?
Yeah, Tony. So I've been in the HR space, I hate to sort of say it, just over 35 years. Um, Either directly leading people as a line manager, so have understood the pains and challenges and the joys that come with that type of role, as well as being a HR business partner through to an executive leader of a function looking after culture, people, and safety.
Okay. And how did you find that transition into business ownership 8 years ago?
That's a good question. Uh, it was a little bit unnerving. It was a little bit scary because you went away from having that certainty in terms of, knowing what you were meant to deliver, a paycheck at the end of every, month or fortnight or whatever the pay period was, but also saw it as a real opportunity to be able to sort of deliver and build people's, leaders' capability in business, without all the politics that sort of go along with being in a corporate role. Yeah. So
Uh,
that's cool.
Amazing. And so
Yeah.
where are you based, Janeene?
So based on the north side of Brisbane,
Mhm.
and we pretty much do anywhere around Brisbane or even interstate. And we've also undertaken some work internationally in Fiji. So during COVID, for example, we actually got the Fiji gig just before COVID,
Mhm.
and then had to adapt
Mhm.
and try and deliver pretty much a culture program online, because obviously we couldn't fly. So we have quite a few sort of tools that we use with businesses around, called Prism brain mapping, DISC obviously, and a culture values assessment. So
Yeah,
We sort
great.
of have a look at what the main pain points are and then tailor a solution to specifically address those pain points.
Okay. And who would your ideal referral be, Janeene?
Ideal referral would be a medium to large business that are actually looking to undertake leadership or culture programs and also looking for bespoke sessions where they actually want us to help build their internal capability. So we aren't an organisation that just pick it off the shelf and deliver a program. We really work with the business. So we're working with a couple of big clients at the moment, leadership program, anywhere from sort of, a 4-hour session through to 4 days, 5 days, and really tailoring what it is. So what are the challenges that they're really faced with and the maturity of their leaders as well. So, if they're really, really mature, then you'd actually tailor the program slightly differently to, say, leaders that are just quite green.
So 8 years ago, you entered the uncertainty of business ownership. Where does BNI come into the journey, Janeene?
So BNI actually came into the journey about 12 months ago. And I was introduced through my sister, actually. So my sister had a florist up the Sunshine Coast, and she said, "Hey, come along for a breakfast." And I had some availability. I just sort of stepped out of a fairly full-time gig with a client. So I needed to sort of have a little bit of space and said, "Yep, sure, I'll come along." Um, and I really liked the concept. I loved the feeling of the people in the room. I connected with that sense of support that they, were there to help the other person's business grow as well. Um, but when I said to my sister, "Hey, I'm happy to join and I could probably come once a month," she said, "Oh no, you're not allowed to do that." So I ended up then searching Brisbane and having a look around in Brisbane. I had some other contacts who also knew like Lisa Gill, so I had a bit of a chat with Lisa as well. But because I'm on the north side of Brisbane, I ended up joining a chapter called BNI Gravity. So and yeah, so they just made me feel really, really welcome, and I could see that it was a great way to build trust quickly with your network and with those people who are almost your marketing team, and they have your back.
And what was it about that first meeting, the first time you went to BNI Gravity? What was it about that meeting, Janeene, that encouraged you to go, you know what? I've found my tribe?
It really was the people. They definitely made me feel welcome. I could see that it was a way to build warm referrals. So, as you know, being in business, when you're trying to start from scratch and, go to clients and say, "Hey, I have a service," or, "What are your pain points and how can I meet your needs?" Um, I could just really see that it was a way that you could actually build that network. Um, they were fantastic people, and they still are, and just made you feel so welcome and that you could build trust quickly with them as well.
And how has being part of a BNI chapter influenced your approach to networking, Janeene?
Good question. I have never been much for networking in the past. Um, and I'm quite a deliverer. So my focus is normally on delivery. And so I always saw that as a little bit of that's just building, network. It's a bit of a wasting time kind of thing, historically, of course. And then I suppose I just started to see the real value in it. So it's made me much more open. It's made me, I don't know, really sort of what I would say lean into it a lot more. Just that opportunity to build the relationships, to try and help people. You can help them with their pain points. You can help them with, what their challenges are, and really help them sort of build their business as well through the referral program.
And how do you measure the success of your participation in BNI? Are there any specific metrics or stories that highlight that success, Janeene?
Good question, Tony. So, like I said, I've just chapter just over 12 months. And within probably my first sort of within my first month, I had a goal. I wanted to organise a one-on-one with every member. I thought, no, that's my goal. So I did do that. So to me, that was a measure of success, making sure that I actually got to know each member within the chapter, and understand a bit of what they did and how they operated. And then within the first year, I actually ended up backfilling for an executive position. And again, it was just so openly and warmly supported by the group. So they sort of they make me feel valued, and just you build that trust so quickly.
So, when you talk about that you were able to complete a one-to-one with everyone in the first month, how many's in your chapter?
22.
22. So just for those that are listening who aren't familiar with BNI, so a one-to-one is typically 1 hour in length, and the expectation is we do one of these per week. But Janeene, in her first month, has decided to do 22 one-to-ones, which is amazing. What prompted you to do 22 in a month?
I think because of my HR background, because of the learnings I've probably had throughout my career, and I could just see the value in, I was new to this group. So I'd never worked with them before. They didn't know who I was. I didn't know who they were, not on a deep level. And I just thought, what a great way to just learn about their business so I could actually do referrals, because I was a little worried when I first joined, how am I going to, refer people? Much easier than what you would think. And also wanting to give them a sense of building trust with me as an outsider. So, yeah.
So just going back to your comment around you thought that perhaps finding referrals might be difficult, your initial thoughts. I come across that a lot, actually. A lot of people say, oh, it's going to be really difficult to find referrals. What was it that you did to enable you to find those referrals and make it a little bit easier for yourself?
Good question. My first conversation that I recall was actually with Lisa Gill. And she said, because I said, oh, look, I'm really worried. The industry I'm in, it's consulting to, sometimes large business. I don't come across, hundreds of clients a week or anything like to that degree. So I said, I was a little bit worried about being able to give back. And she said, just go in with it with an open mind, and, it'll happen. And I suppose that's what I tried to have in terms of the mindset. And I probably went out of my way a little bit to use people in the group where I could first. And then from there, other friends, you just keep that open mind and keep that little bit of a awareness of, well, who else out there are asking for things, like cleaners, like accountants, I'm trying to think, bookkeepers, all of the other professions that you've got in your chapter. And once you're sort of tuned to listening out for that, it just became quite easy. And I don't think I've missed, the sort of referral statistics either. So yeah, been great.
So I describe it as opening your RAS. So
Yes.
you know the RAS, so your reticular activating system. For those who are listening or watching who aren't familiar with what it is, it's a filter that is at the base of our brain, the top of our spine, and it allows in things that it thinks we want to have allowed in, and it discards the rest. And so when you open your RAS to referrals or open your RAS to finding visitors, then all of a sudden you find them everywhere. Conversely, if you tell yourself, oh my gosh, this is too hard, I'll never find a referral, I'll never do these things. Well, now you're effectively closing down or shutting down your RAS. And of course, you will get what you're wishing for in the sense of you won't find any referrals. So, like you said, it's about tuning in or opening your RAS up, that there are an enormous amount of opportunities around us. We just have to be open and ready for those opportunities.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think just like you said, opening your RAS and then being attuned to it when you hear it, connecting, rewiring your neurons to say, oh, yep, that's an opportunity, for me to do a bit of a qualified referral. And I think you said before, how else would I measure success? And I think the other sort of measure for me is the friendships, and that sort of there are people in that room that really genuinely care about you, and assisting you to do well and build your business.
And it's great that you say that, Janeene, because I often hear that people come into BNI for the commercial reality. We come there initially because we want the referrals, we want the business generated for our own businesses, but then we stick around because we do make lifelong friends with the people in our chapter. We're seeing them at a meeting once a week. We're having those regular one-to-ones with them. We're going out to different social events with them. We've just finished here in Brisbane our 2024 BNI won awards, and we all got to share and celebrate with each other. So it's about, yes, coming in for the commerciality, but then building those friendships that do really last a lifetime.
Yeah, absolutely.
So 12 months into BNI. So how has your business evolved since joining BNI, Janeene?
It's certainly grown a bit more quickly than what I thought. And, that's been due to the sort of qualified referrals that you get from others in the group, as well as the sort of connections beyond that. So that, flow on in terms of third tier. So, I've had someone introduce me to a person at a particular organisation. That person's introduced me to, let's say, the HR director. And then the HR director has sort of said, yes, we're interested in a leadership program. And then, it goes on from there in terms of liaising with the sort of OD manager. So that's been, really fantastic. And a focus on those sort of small to medium businesses as well. So really just opening my eyes a little to probably the gaps in that space, and the assistance, a lot of those sort of CEOs, directors need. So yeah, I think that's certainly something. And I think in terms of the role BNI's had, it opens the doors, would be the way I would describe it. So people are certainly more open to talking to you. So if you, again, think about cold calling, the old days of cold calling, how many people would you need to sort of tap on the door to before you even got them to engage in a conversation? I think BNI actually opens those doors. So, they've already identified a bit of a need or a potential need. So BNI has added value straight away.
So what advice would you give to new BNI members to make the most out of their membership?
I like that question. I think trust the system and be committed to it. So it does work. And that focus on building those strong relationships. So build them early and then set yourself some targets.
Exactly. So the system does work, but it doesn't work on its own, right? So you've got to work the system. So BNI has been around for 40 years. Exactly as you said, Janeene, follow the process, trust the system, but you've got to work it. And the reality is you will get out of things what you put into them.
Absolutely. And look, if I liken that to the HR space, people talk about, the PD position descriptions don't work or their performance agreements don't work or whatever. They're just tools. They're just processes. They don't come to life or do anything unless the leaders actually use them in the way that they want to use them to, affect the business and the performance of the business and the people in it. So absolutely. Yeah.
So what's next for your business? Any exciting expansions or projects on the horizon?
Not necessarily expansions. We do want to continue building, but in a controlled manner. Probably at least one more, permanent employee. We have, there's two of us at the moment, myself and another permanent employee, and we've got a couple of casuals and then some contractors that we use for peaks and troughs of work. We've got some great clients, so I really want to just continue fostering those relationships. And as we continue to grow, making sure that, that the service to them is not compromised in any way. And then, work with them as their businesses grow, that ours will also grow as well.
And how do you see your relationship with BNI evolving as your business grows?
I've made some fabulous connections and friendships. So I would say it's not just BNI, the system. It really would be just continuing to foster those. And like everything that's important, you need to focus on those relationships to continually, water, make sure they grow. Really want to continue attending some other chapters. in the BNI event. So I did go to the awards night last Friday, I think it was. And, making sure that I can continually give back as well. So for me, that's quite important. It's the primary isn't just, hey, I want to, get thank you for closed business, but it's around how much thank you for closed business can I give and then contribute to the chapter's success as well. And I think the other thing is just that life of a director or owner can be quite lonely. So that relationship with BNI, it gives you that opportunity to be with like-minded people, have a support network, and like I said before, sort of people who actually have your back.
And if you could share one piece of wisdom with our listeners and viewers, now remembering that some people listening or watching won't be from BNI, so what would that piece of wisdom be, Janeene?
I would say lean into the unknown and get outside your comfort zone.
Where the magic happens, isn't it?
It is. It is. Not the panic zone, the comfort zone. Learning zone sort of thing. So look, I've heard lots of stories from people indicating, that they were afraid of public speaking, for example. And then through that whole BNI process, they've built up their confidence, and their businesses have grown beyond their expectations. So, it's engage with, a coach, a strategist, HR professional to really help them identify what it is they want to achieve and help them actually get there, because once they join, their businesses will grow because there's just such a strong network of the referral process.
Wonderful advice. Thanks, Janeene. Now, how can our audience learn more about your business or get in touch with you?
Well, we've got the usual socials in terms of LinkedIn, Facebook, Insta, and I'm sure a few others, which I'm not 100% across. But we've got a website, so hrsconnect.com.au. Certainly reach out by phone to myself, or Heather Adams is, the other key person in the team. And you can reach out through connect@hrsconnect.com.au.
Amazing. Thank you, Janeene. Well, look, that wraps up another episode of the BNI Effect. I hope you enjoyed today's discussion, and I want to extend a massive thank you to our guest, Janeene Fitzgerald, for sharing her insights with us. If you found value in today's episode, then don't forget to subscribe to the BNI Effect on your favourite podcast platform, and please leave us a review. Thanks for listening.